Okay, so last video I talked about songwriting in its entirety. This time I'm just going to concentrate on the method. If you stumbled across this video and not my previous one, I'll be talking about the base method I use to build my songs as a whole. I'd say 90% of people can get away with just knowing this one bit of information. So for lots of people that have written a lot of songs already or might have a bit of music theory knowledge, then this might be teaching to suck eggs, but there's still a reason why you might want to approach and write songs this way. So guitar all started for me when I was in my teens. I went on to learning some stuff in E standard, is that what the guitar comes in. That went on to moving into drop tuning eventually, like learning stuff like Lamb of God. Eventually went on to like drop C and drop B. I think when the problem is when you get into certain metal and you are in drop tunings, when you do eventually start writing your own material, you're instantly in a drop tuning. Not to take anything away from drop tuning, I like loads of stuff that's written in drop tuning, but it can be a bit detrimental to songwriting, especially early on. Now I'm not saying you have to go up to E standards to get this method in place, just tune your guitar up. If you're in drop B, consider going into C sharp standard, you get the drill. If you're wondering why this might be beneficial for yourself, just ask yourself right now, when was the last time I wrote a song that didn't include an open note? I'm pushing this method for two reasons. The first is that I'm not seeing any videos that explain it this simply coming across in my algorithms. I'm not saying they don't exist, I'm just saying I haven't come across them. Second is when I started up this project, I started joining various pages like Reddit and stuff. I'm not seeing it explained when people are asking, and it's such a simple method that I just wonder why that is. It's because it's so simple that it's often overlooked. So when I went back to drawing board when I picked up a guitar again a few years ago, started learning all the basic stuff like the circle of fifths and your cage system and everything. And I came across the mode patterns. I was noticing I was hearing some of these previously, I wasn't sure where from. Because when I started looking at the patterns and I started listening to more songs in E standard again, I was recognising some of these patterns in various songs. Figured this out, my songwriting just exploded because I had a map of where all the notes were available, what notes I could and couldn't use. That's so simple. I just think it's overlooked by a lot of people, or they just carry on from the building blocks, they just go to learning songs and then they're just writing riffs that kind of work, they're not actually thinking about the theory, but it works, it's in key, they're not aware of the key. Came into this project that I started up, I was a lot more confident with writing stuff that was out of drop tuning because I had a bit more knowledge about the theory and where all the notes were. And the second thing was that it gave me options to write songs that didn't include just the open note, which a lot of us always go for at the beginning. These patterns you can effectively move 11 times, and in a lot of those patterns the open note isn't available, so it's a really good method for putting yourself out your comfort zone and writing songs that don't require an open note. So for those that didn't see my previous video, I'll run through a quick basic example of where I'm finding out where my riff is in these patterns and then working out which key we're in. For those that didn't see the previous video, I think the first step for you is to go onto Google. You want to take a screenshot of a map for E Phrygian dominant, E Phrygian, E Aeolian, E diminished, a few others you might need. If you're playing more modern stuff, you might want to download some more like Mixolydian, stuff like that. I'll run through a quick riff and I'll show you how I fit that into place and figure out the scale. The subject of these modes, didn't mention it in the last video, but if you're playing in like E Phrygian, for example, you'll actually find the next key pattern in there. So if you're in E Phrygian, you'll find the Aeolian pattern. I think for Phrygian that's going to be a Aeolian. Just didn't seem like necessary information just for people to get the ball rolling, but those patterns are there. So if you're looking at those maps, that there's only actually one note difference between Phrygian and Aeolian. The same could be said for Phrygian and Phrygian dominant. So if I'm looking at the map for E Phrygian dominant and I've just come up with that riff, and now I need to just figure out where that group of notes is on the Phrygian dominant map, and I need to work it either up or down the fretboard till it fits where the riff we've just created is. So I know in my head that that pattern isn't going to be Phrygian or Aeolian, just because of where this note sits. So I've written enough songs now that I know that that's going to be a Phrygian pattern, and I know that I need to bring that up a few steps. So I think I need to go up 4 steps. So for me, that pattern is going to fit in G sharp Phrygian dominant. So we've worked out where our riff fits and we've worked out the key. We've now got a map of the entire fretboard, and any note on that is fair game. You might be thinking, if you've got your power chords in that, then the notes for your power chords aren't on the map. You don't need to worry about that. If there's a note on that map, you can turn that into a power chord. I explained why in the previous video for those of you that haven't got a clue about music theory. So the other thing we can do is, rather than taking our bass riff and figuring out the key and stuff, is we can do everything but in reverse. So we could just take these map patterns, move from E to F, F sharp, G. We can download these patterns and we can start writing to the maps, as opposed to taking your riff and making it fit to the map. If you're thinking of these patterns just in Phrygian dominant and Aeolian, you've got 33 possible combinations of keys you can write in just without touching the fretboard. Some of these patterns are going to sound instantly better because of where the notes fit and stuff. I'd say 9 out of 10 of my songs may be written in Phrygian dominant, just because the pattern's so malleable, and I like where the notes sit, especially onto the next string and stuff. You've got plenty of options there for pretty thrash sounding stuff. That's pretty much the way I write now. So rather than just coming up with riffs aimlessly and building off the riffs, now I'm just looking at the patterns. So I'll go from like A sharp all the way to G. I'll come up with some sort of riff just looking at the patterns, and then just take the songs from there, just take one riff to the computer and just start building. It's an excellent way of just getting your creativity flowing, just being out of your comfort zone and stuff. Say that all this information can't be applied to your drop tunings, then you can just manipulate the map to fit a drop tuning. You've just got a better idea of where all the rest of the notes are, for like your soloing and stuff. So yeah, it's a very simple method, but it's often overlooked for reasons I can't figure out how. So I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to the page or anything, because I think this is going to be it as far as tutorials go. Hopefully. Don't really plan on doing any more if I can help it. Again, I know I said that in the last video. Just figured I could elaborate on the method a little bit more. So just coming into Christmas now, so you probably won't see any videos from me for a long time. I think I'm just going to lock in over the winter and just write another EP again. I'll be using that method. I'll just be going from A all the way to G, writing something in that pattern, and then just taking the songs from there. Cheers.